Running commentary. We are exploring listening to albums. It is a lost art form. Thompson Twins, Into the Gap. Thompson Twins, Into the Gap was the fourth studio album from the band. Comprised of Joe Leeway, Tom Bailey, and Alana Curry, the Thompson Twins were thrust into international success. I believe unwittingly. Thompson Twins had started as a kind of 9 or 10 piece band that were very anti-nuclear. They had signed their publishing to RCA back in 1981, and the members had gradually dwindled, and there was ill feeling amongst the original members. I'm not exactly sure how Thompson Twins sprung to prominence, but sometime during 1982, they eventually got a clue about becoming kind of a dance band, and then were really thrust into the main arena in 1983 with Love on Your Side and We Are Detective. Into the Gap really was the showcase or the gallery for Hold Me Now, which was the Alex Sadkin produced single and album here. Hold Me Now, when you speak to people, is the song that was played entirely too much. People were absolutely sick to the back teeth of this song by the time it had finished its circulation. This having been said, there was a reason that this song was played a million times. And the reason is that in the music and in the way the instrumental and the cadence of his voice and how he spoke on this song had actually a real sense of kind of a conversational style. And that's unusual. It's like he's almost getting above himself, and perhaps I should leave here and go far away. But then he brings it to a more conciliatory tone with, but you know that there's nowhere that I'd rather be than with you here today. And I do think that that conciliatory tone on Hold Me Now is what made this really a 1983 classic and a hit in America and the United States. Also, the instrumentation was really like a blossoming flower. The synths were really crescendoing and arpeggioing, and lots of kind of expression in the instrumentation. The word I always think of with Thompson Twins is plodding. They were never a group that really did anything that mattered, but they really garnered public affection. And I want to try and break down why that happened. When you think of Thompson Twins, they were really a user-friendly alternative to Culture Club. If you look at Culture Club and you look at the Thompson Twins, there are kind of similar things going on. You have the black man in the group, providing a kind of cool sort of aspect to the thing. We have to say that Alana Curry is the star of this group. She's the reason that people looked at the Thompson Twins. She wailed like an on-crack Mari. She really was somebody that really everyone said, oh, look at that girl with her shaved blonde hair, singing her ass off and banging the shit out of the xylophone or whatever it was she was doing. But Alana Curry was the star of this group. She was a New Zealand immigrant, and she used to be in a group with a group of other girls in Clapham Junction, of all places, in a group called the Unfuckables. Who are we to argue? I will say this. Tom Bailey and Alana Curry did have a chemistry which kept the group together. Joe Leeway was responsible for the styling of the group and the percussion. I'll never forget being in the Smash Hits offices, and we were transcribing a Thompson Twins interview, and we were able to make out what we were able to make out what Tom and Alana were saying quite easily. But whenever it came to anything that Joe was saying, we literally sat and scratched our heads. We had no clue what the man was saying. I don't think that the Thompson Twins ever expected to be as big as they were. By their own admission, they were recently included as one of the top 10 new romantic groups, to which they basically poo-pooed themselves. They said, we're not very good. We had no clue what we were doing. I don't think that they meant for it to happen, but they really were a safe alternative to Culture Club. They had a woman, a real woman, not Boy George. They had Alana Curry, a real woman. They had Tom Bailey, who was this sort of blustering kind of, really along the lines of Martin Fry, with the red hair and the pale skin and the oh-so-affected vocal. Hugely influenced by Talking Heads. Thompson Twins really wanted to be this kind of Art Deco band, but they made so many missteps along the way. There was this, from 1 minute, they were this incredibly serious sort of adult band, and then they would come out with a record like We Are Detective, and you would say to yourself, what the hell are you doing? How can you go from Love on Your Side to We Are Detective? I don't want to digress too much here. A lot of Thompson Twins' challenge was the fact that they would hit the adult current beautifully, and then they'd go into this kind of very junior... Look-In magazine is what I always think of. You know, Look-In was below Smash Hits as far as I'm concerned. Look-In was for people between the ages of 7 and 10. And Thompson and Twins looked really at home on the cover as they sort of posed for their, you know, Olympics cover in 1984 in Los Angeles or whatever it was. I want to talk about the other tracks on the album. Hold Me Now really is a legendary track. Yes, you're sick to death of hearing it, but it's a really very well-sculpted record. Now, the other important thing is that when you realize that Into the Gap was made at Compass Point Studios in the Bahamas, why does this matter? You need to transport yourself to the group. You are a group that's enjoying success, and here you are in the Bahamas recording your album. Spandau Ballet have just been there before. There's something about being in the tropics which will explain this kind of sort of reggae-ish tinge which Joe Leeway kind of legitimizes by just being there. Which explains a song like You Take Me Up. And you listen to You Take Me Up and you wonder where the hell it came from. It doesn't really relate to anything. No one's saying You Take Me Up talks about my life. It doesn't talk about anyone's life. It's this kind of pop throwaway thing. And I have to say that Alana Curry, to me, reminded me of an over-enthusiastic Doozer from Fraggle Rock. Really, just a very, very unusual group. And the music is still so tied in with nostalgia. You Take Me Up is pretty much a dreadful record, but it ties into being 12 years old. And there's something about You Take Me Up with that harmonica and the way it, again, plods. The Thompson Twins plod. They go bloop, 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 bloop. They don't really move. They don't really do anything of significance. They're a safe alternative to the wild and crazy Boy George. And if you look at their marketing with this blue, there's a beautiful blue behind and a sort of a sphere, a kind of an outline of a globe on the album cover. Doctor Doctor is the follow-up to Hold Me Now, a big hit, a number 3 record. Sort of this sort of sense of impending doom as they, again, plod in with this sort of chugga-chugga kind of synthesizer and this sort of rhythmic, you know, oh my goodness, what's going to happen on the new Thompson Twins single? Not a whole lot. I mean, it just never meant that much to me, this song. I get that it's a good pop song, and it really worked as a follow-up to Hold Me Now, particularly for the public. I just don't understand what the song's about. Sister of Mercy, which was the 4th single from the album, to me was a big mistake. It was a really, really big mistake. It starts off with this big, flourishing piano which promises such great things. This woman ends up killing her husband. We're not told why she kills her husband, so how do you go from You Take Me Up, Doctor Doctor Hold Me Now, to this woman butchering her husband in a mansion while she sits on a white chair? I'm very confused. Sister of Mercy to me was a mistake because it's this vacillation of adult, child. How are you supposed to follow the Thompson Twins when they're not giving you any kind of lineage? What's missing with the Thompson Twins' career is direction. What's not missing is quirk and individuality. They do have the character. We then go on to The Gap, which is the title track. This should have been the 4th single. It had this kind of sort of Arabian, North African style kind of, like very sort of it being in a market in Morocco. And it works. It really would have worked for the Thompson Twins. They should have released this as the 4th single. It would have given them a 4th top 10 record. I really like The Gap. I have to say, you can tell that I find probably the Thompson Twins one of the most fascinating success stories of the 80s because I really just don't understand how it worked. I don't really get how they got to be so huge. You know, people in the States know the Thompson Twins, but they were very much coasting on the other groups. You know, Thompson Twins kind of snuck in, not on their own merit, but because other people from England were doing things, and the Thompson Twins, again, I think on the back of Culture Club's coattails, snuck in and made a career for themselves. There's no malice towards them. I don't think you can feel anything but wonder at the Thompson Twins. They really, going into this album, I was like, I'm gonna hate this. I ended up buying 3 extra songs from this album, and don't ask me why. I have no clue why. All I know is that there is this sort of beguiling thing that happens with the plot that they do. It just kind of seeps into you, and you're like, I'm singing along to this song, and I kind of like it, and I don't really know why. They did have their own sound. You can definitely put a Thompson Twins record on and say, oh yeah, that's him with the red hair and the blonde crazy chick. Day After Day, I think, is a mistake. You know, the instrumental break is way too similar to Doctor Doctor. I'm not stupid. I mean, I've just heard Doctor Doctor, and now you're giving me a rehashed version of the same song. We should talk about Alex Sadkin, who produced the album, and really, I think, is pivotal in the career of the Thompson Twins, and particularly Hold Me Now, which to me is probably one of his best works. Sad to say that Alex Sadkin was killed in a road accident in the Bahamas. Duran Duran paid homage to him. He was worked with Chris Blackwell as an associate on Bob Marley's album, and also with Grace Jones. So his kind of sensibility for this kind of tropical sensibility, which was so key to the early 1980s sound. You needed that Caribbean sensibility. And don't get me wrong, I understand as far as Caribbean sensibility, that this is such an undertone that it's not real. But Alex Sadkin, in producing this album, gave Thompson Twins the hit of their career with this album. This was one of the best selling records from 1984. It made #1 on the UK album charts. It was a #10 album here in the United States. Storm on the Sea, I absolutely love it. I think it's got mood. I think it's got class. I think they don't ever push themselves too hard. It's not there to give. They don't have anywhere to go but where they are. And I think that's why I respect them. There's nowhere to go for them. Obviously, the sad part of that is as they make their way out of 84 and into 85, and they become the hottest thing since sliced bread in the United States. They're one of the biggest bands in 1985. And they just can't keep up with it. Tom Bailey goes into a complete nervous breakdown, has to cancel the tour, and it's over for the Thompson Twins. And there's definitely a sadness to that. In this album, and there are other tracks I haven't mentioned. Who Can Stop the Rain? Who cares? Who cares about this song? I have absolutely no interest in it. I think there was a great quote that I read from Melody Maker or one of those highbrow papers that described Thompson Twins as being the monosodium glutamization of pop music. That sort of umami that I don't quite know what it is, but I like it, and I'm kind of moving to it, and I really do think that of the time, that was the best journalistic quote. In finalization of Into the Gap, which I was determined not to like going in, I started off with an initial mark of 68%. But upon a second and a third listen and purchasing of 3 new songs from the record, I award Into the Gap as a final mark, 74%. If you'd like to subscribe to the channel, recommend it to friends, post comments. Also, if you have an album that you'd like to hear reviewed, we welcome your requests.